So let's discuss the write-in process, design, and graphics. I know I'm behind on the write-in process, and this is the 5th attempt of me recording this mess. So please bear with me on this, but most of you have already done the actual test and reviewed all of the material for it that I posted. But again, write-in process is everywhere, and it's with everything that you're going to be doing from now on, and every job that you probably will get into. So I would tell you that your procrastination days probably should come to an end. At least set your own internal deadlines so that you can walk away from your work and then come back to it and proofread it before you submit it. It's hard to do with all the deadlines, but again, if you write it up and then take a break, usually you start seeing errors that you might not normally see if you try to do it all in one sitting. Alright, so this is what I like to think about with the write-in process. You need to evaluate your rhetorical situation. Okay, writers critically consider their writing assignment, whether it's academic or work-related. Who is their audience and what is the purpose? Again, if we've discussed the audience and purpose since you've been at this university and even before then, obviously there's something to this, and when you get ready to present, knowing your audience beforehand really becomes an issue that you need to address and know before you walk in the door. Inventing, this is the same as brainstorming. You're doing that right now with the actual hero unit. Researching, again, you're going to be researching some different topic stuff. Really important to understand the difference between primary and secondary. Again, stuff that you've covered, but important stuff so that you know this is what you do even outside of going to school. And organizing, how are you going to organize it? Then you develop it. So you write a draft. This is where I say write the draft, put it aside for a day or two, and then come back and then do number 6, which is review what you've written. Once you review it, you go into the revision stage because hopefully you have found those mistakes. I would suggest right after the revision stage to let somebody else read it at this point, then edit and proofread it. Editing is making sure there's no grammatical errors, that you're bias free. Proofreading is just making sure it looks the way it's supposed to look. And then publishing. Okay? As soon as you hit submit in Blackboard, for me, you have published your work. So think about that as you get ready to publish something. What does it look like? All right, so let's get into revising and editing for usability. This is towards the end of your drafting. Again, go through this. The more people that you have look at your work, obviously, the better. And then copyright and symbols. I haven't seen these in a while, but they're there. I have used them, especially new paragraphing. I've really used those. I've used the squiggly lines to transpose stuff. I've used the 3 underlines for capital letters. I've scratched through things. So again, there are some of these that I even use if I were to grade it, a hard copy on a piece of paper. And then design. This is probably going to come into play when you start working on your newsletter. There are 5 principles of design. The balance. Does it look right from left to right, top to bottom? How does it look to your eye when you see it? A lot of people will say it's off-centered or it needs to be up higher. Kind of think about that as you stand back and look at it. Alignment. Does it need to be tabbed? Yes and no. More than likely your paragraphs in a newsletter are single spaced and there are no tabs with them. So you have to keep all of that in a column. Do you want to justify it to make it look right? You can, again, play around with your alignment, but how does that picture look next to your text? And you really have to step back and take a look at it. Grouping. Related images and words need to be near each other. Also, rule of thumb is odd numbers of pictures, and they can lay up one on top of the other, so you have to remember that. But usually, everybody likes to look at groups of 3. So keep that in mind. Consistency is a big deal, especially with any kind of written document in the workplace or anything that would need to be professional. You have to have the same text. You have to have the same fonts for your headings. You have to have the same size for headings versus subheadings, and keep that up throughout the whole entire document. And then contrast. Yeah. Look at those different colors and how they work together and how they play. There's stuff that draws you to it. What is it? So think about that when you're looking at the design. What are these 5 elements and how do they play even when you start putting together this newsletter? All right, I'm going to skip the weighting guidelines. Make sure that you read those. Using principles of design, analyze your readers. Again, what's your document's context of use or purpose? Use thumbnails to sketch out a design. Design the document, revise and edit the document. And then graphics. We are a very visual society. We learn a lot more by pictures than we do by reading text any day. Remember when you were in grade school and all of a sudden those books you were reading went from having a lot of pictures to no pictures, and they were chapter books, and how upset you probably were that the pictures went away? This is why, is because that's how we learn. So you need to have graphics. Do they tell a story? Should they reinforce the written text? They definitely should. They shouldn't replace the text though. Do they need to be ethical? And think about that issue. It's, if you're writing about something controversial, how ethical do you want to stand? And what kind of reaction do you want to get from your audience? And again, what's your purpose? And then every graphic should be labeled. Don't forget to label it. Some other types of graphics that you can look for, especially in anytime you're using data, line graphs, bar graphs, tables, pie charts, flow charts, Gantt charts. Again, you can put the data there, but you need something visual so that that person can make connections and actually see what the data is doing. And yes, we really depend on this. So if you're not good at creating line graphs, bar graphs, tables, pie charts, etc., you need to get better at that. And then, at what point are there too many graphics? Yeah, are there too many? Are there not enough? What point is the graphics where it's going to be a problem? Do some graphics work better than others? And I would say if you see that going on, delete the others that aren't working for you. How can you balance the written text with visuals to avoid making the document too text heavy or too visual heavy? And then how do the needs and characteristics of the expected readers of the document shape the kind of visuals that are used? Again, all of this needs to be into play when you're starting to design something. You thought about this during the brochure, but it wasn't actually laid out enough in words for you to think about. Now you're moving into the newsletter. Now you understand, okay, I saw what I did with the brochure. How can I make this better with a newsletter? And obviously the newsletter is going to have a lot more text than the brochure did, so it has to balance out. Again, that word balance keeps popping up. If you have any questions dealing with graphics or writing process or anything like that, please let me know. And if not, just play around with your document and see what works and what doesn't work. But again, you have to give yourself time to do that.